Symbolizing the unity of body, mind, and spirit. Thank you. Please silence your cell phones unless you're law enforcement or medical personnel. The restrooms are down the hall, quick right, quick left. If you need the use of those during the service, we have coffee and donuts in the back if you'd like to have any of those during the service. I'm Reverend Steve Adkins. I'm the pastor of the church. Welcome to the Sunday service for the People's Church of Divine Prophecy. And thank you all for coming and sharing today. And as you've heard, we have our musical guy here that's going to be here the second Sunday of every month, mixing it up a little bit. And well, it's always good to have a backup or an alternate. Please stand for the opening prayer and remain standing for the first hymn.
That's you afterwards.
Dear Father God, we give thanks for this gathering here today. May we continue to feel the joy, happiness, and peace that has been shared here in the beginning. May we continue to sense your presence and express that joy, happiness, and peace to all that we encounter today and through the week. May we feel your divine love. Amen. The next portion is the reading by the pastor, something I've encountered in my past week and put into a spiritual perspective from a discipline I try to practice. It's kind of odd how the smallest things can lead you to the greatest realization in your life about spiritual pursuits. And last night, me and my wife were at dinner, and we come out, and there's this little green tree frog on the door of my truck in the middle of this huge parking lot. And my wife says, well, shoot him off. So I shoot him off, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, he's going to die out here in the middle of this huge parking lot when the sun comes up, or somebody's going to run over him, one of the two. So I caught him, and she goes, well, put him on the building where that water is. I said, no, I think I'm going to put him over here on the edge where the trees are. So I'm walking over there, and I walk over there to let him go, and the last parking spot is empty. And there's this about a $60 pocket folding knife sitting in the parking lot open. It's a Sheffield knife, which is, for the guys that know pocket knives, they're pretty nice pocket knives. Brand new, almost unscratched, unused, and it was just like a little reward for choosing to take that frog over there. And when I thought about all that, I thought about, you know how God uses the smallest things to guide our lives, and then you get a reward from it. And it's not always that present where you get that reward. But God uses the most insignificant things in our lives to lead us to realizations when you see those things. Because that's what I did, was I realized that that had been, you know, a spirit-inspired thing. Now, I don't know where that frog came from, because it was out in the middle of this parking lot. And he's a green frog, not a toad, so they like water. And I just thought that was really nice to feel that way and just have that realization. And on top of it, when you acknowledge those little bits of guidance, the little urgings, it becomes more present in your lives. You're more consciously aware of it when you thank God for those small guidances to things, and take a moment to be grateful and to praise that as it happens in your life. That kind of helps you a little bit when you run head on into the difficult times, and then you have an attitude of looking for those small guidances, because that's where God works with you in the huge things that overwhelm you, is these little guidances that change your mind, that change your perception for a moment in the difficult situations you're in. There's always a little bird or a little song or something that you hear in the background of these huge choking events that you find yourself in. It's very insignificant, very small, but as soon as you acknowledge it, it changes the whole perspective of what you're involved in. It doesn't mean you don't have to deal with it, but it changes your perspective a little bit and takes away that humanness a little bit about the immediacy of what's going on. I had somebody call me the other night for guidance, and I always open my mind and allow God to speak through me to people. I try not to speak too much about my own conclusions and my own beliefs about things when I'm speaking with people in a guidance fashion. And this guy was talking to me, and he was saying how he had gotten really angry about things in his life, and that he had gone from a nice person to wanting to harm people. Not himself, he wanted to harm other people. So I spoke with him a little bit, and what had happened is he had a relationship that he thought was a one-time-in-a-life thing, and he had messed it up and was feeling very difficult with it, and it just kind of dominated for a couple of weeks to where he got into this state of difficult thinking. And this guy has a lot of spiritual discipline, he has a lot of metaphysical training, and he's speaking all this language like chakras and master guides telling him this and that. And I said, you know what you need to do? I said, you need to shut all that off and just live your life as a human being for a couple weeks. Stop thinking all of these things. Listen to your own guidance. Listen to your own consciousness. Stop looking outward. Stop trying to identify all these things and feel it for a little bit. Just shut all that off. And sometimes our spiritual disciplines do that to us. We overthink them. We forget to realize that the purpose of these teachings and these disciplines that we embrace is to create that greater love within us. It's not to stick to the letter of the dogma. It's not to stick to the letter of that training. It's to produce that individual power and that individual love within us. Because these teachings are the same. They're worded the same. They can't be flexible. So we have to be flexible with them. So that's just something else I'd like to leave you with thinking about. Sometimes it's time to just shut it off and be a human being. Stop. There's a saying that comes to mind, be careful you don't get so heavenly you're no earthly good. So I'll leave that with you. Thank you. Our service is comprised of three parts: the healing portion, the inspirational lecture, and the demonstration of spiritual gifts. I'd like to ask Marty and Judy to take positions behind the healing chairs. We're going to, during this portion, you can have a seat in the chair as it becomes vacant. You'll hear this chime during the guided meditation, which means the chair has become vacant. You can go over there as the chairs become vacant. I will be leading the guided meditation today. Ashkhen has asked me to do that, so I'm happy to do that. Let's begin the portion of the service by reading the prayer for spiritual healing on the back inside cover. I ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in the love and power of God. If you find a comfortable way to sit in a chair, just no particular way, just however you feel most comfortable. I'd like you to first just begin to gently close your eyes. Begin to feel that rhythmic breathing within your body. The normal rhythmic breathing of life. The calmness that it brings with it. As you begin to feel this natural calmness, the in-breath and out-breath of your body and your life, You begin to feel a peace and gentleness as we put our minds on just our own body and our own vibration, breathing and relaxing, paying attention to all of that calm and peace within ourselves. As we feel that gentleness, that sense of peace and calm, breathing rhythmically, we begin to feel a sense of a higher rhythm within us. We begin to feel our spiritual rhythm. As we feel the spiritual rhythm with our rhythm of life, through the breath, through the breathing, you begin to feel a more encompassing sense of peace and harmony. It begins to extend out to all that is within your awareness, all that is within your creation. As we begin to feel that spreading of this consciousness and our awareness of our connection to all that is around us, we begin to feel our connection to all of life. And we feel ourselves gently on the sea of life, breathing rhythmically and moving with this wonderful sense of rhythm of all that is around us and all that is within us. On the sea of life, we look back down the sea of life to all that has come before us, and we see all those in spirit that have come before us, our relatives, all of those connected to us genetically, all of those connected to us spiritually, down the line of creation into the infinite past. We take a moment to feel their dedication, their devotion to their lives, that they have given, and all that has affected us to allow us to be where we are now. All of these known and unknown to us in some fashion have created the moment and the opportunities before us, allowing us this moment in time. We begin to feel a greater appreciation for the opportunities before us, realizing all the blessings of the generations behind us, forward to now. As we feel this wonderful awareness now, we begin to feel that consciousness, the connection from the mind of God to our mind within us. As we feel the connection from the mind of God to our mind, we feel ourselves aware of ourselves as a thought in the mind of God within the sea of life. Within the sea of life, in the mind of God, we see ourselves as that thought, the creative thought that allows us to exist as an eternal being. And we remind ourselves that we are perfectly balanced thoughts in the mind of God, perfectly harmonious thoughts within the mind of God. As we feel this perfect balance and perfect harmony as ourselves, as a thought in the mind of God, it flows down that eternal connection to us and washes over us, and we sense that intention of God, that purpose of God for us as perfect harmony and perfect balance within our lives. We breathe that in and make that part of us. We breathe that in and make it aware again within our lives. We feel ourselves completely unified with body, mind, and spirit as we were at time of creation. We remind ourselves of this infinite blessing of body, mind, and spirit. We remind ourselves of the worth of this connection. And as we do this, our vibration rate is changed and uplifted. Our vibration rate is softened and greater because of it. The immediacies of all the physical begin to find a perspective. They are not forgotten, but they are in perspective now, with a complete balance of body, mind, and spirit, and the Spirit of God. As we breathe this in and connect to the generations of the past, breathe this in and connect to the present, we feel God's mind within us fully and completely, and accept this blessing from God's mind to our mind. We find ourselves shifted and more than we were when we started. As we put our mind around us to all those of like mind, whether known or unknown to us, we feel that Spirit of God within. We recommit to the purpose of God within us, and we recommit to feeling the eternal purpose for our life, not just the immediate purpose of the here and now. We see ourselves continuing on into the future, far beyond this life. We see ourselves moving within all of creation into eternity with our eternal self. And we are humbled by the immensity of this. We are gladdened by the awareness of this eternal sense. And bring that in, breathing and relaxing. Again, we are aware of that which is always there, putting all the immediacies of now into perspective, not forgetting, but remembering what the true purpose of our spiritual being is. Committing to consult this spiritual being of ours in all that goes before us. Committing to be responsible for what we choose to do through this guidance. Being gladdened again by the opportunities here before us rather than seeing them as burdens or tasks. All those before us, all that God has for us is in the moment now in these opportunities. Remember to see the immensity of these things, and you will always find a way through. We begin now to come gently back, bringing back this awareness, making this awareness part of us, making this personal experience with God and all that has gone before us our own, truly a part of our consciousness and being, realizing that all those others are on the path with us too. Gently beginning to come back through the control of the breath, gently becoming back to the here and now, and gently finding this greater awareness as we come back, allowing that to be with us in the here and now. There's no need to sever this greater awareness as you re-engage the senses. Re-engaging the senses, letting them be a part of this greater awareness. One does not need to overshadow the other. Both have a place. Both have a peace and harmony with each other. Gently coming back to the here and now, allowing this peace and union between the spiritual self and the physical self to be conscious and normal and natural. Coming back gently to the here and now, becoming aware of the room around us. And I will close this portion with an inspirational reading. When something happens to upset you and you are discouraged, try to feel life's difficulties and troubles are not intended to arrest your progress in the spiritual life, but to test your strength and to increase your determination to to progress. Whatever it must be met. You are either to overcome it or use it. Nothing should daunt you for long, nor should any difficulty entirely overcome or conquer you. God's strength will always be there, waiting for you to use it. Nothing can be too great to overcome, or if not overcome, then use. Thank you. The portion of the service is the inspirational talk, which will be given by Ashkhen today. She is a certified healer and spiritual demonstrator in metaphysics from the Emerson Theological Institute in California. She has a natural gift of divine healing and kindness to all that she meets, and anybody that knows her can feel that from her. She spent many years helping people through guided meditations and currently has a class going on which we'll give during the announcements. And she also has a published book which I will allow her to speak about today. So please welcome Ashkhen.
Good morning. Good morning. It is such a joy to see this church growing, blossoming beautifully. Every Sunday, a new light joins this beautiful vortex, the energy that we have created here, that the intention is for love, peace, and beauty. Thank you to Reverend Steve, our pastor, for creating this sacred space for us to gather here, the like-minded people, and to share our love, joy, and happiness with each other. So thank you, Steve, and thank you all for being here. Today my topic is about change, and how does change impact our growth. I looked up in the dictionary for the word change, in case if we don't know what it means. Change means to become different. Change also means to make someone or something different. Change means to become altogether something else. So no matter how hard I looked for something different for the word meaning change, it all meant that transformation, to becoming something different. People usually don't like the idea of change. They resist change because change requires shifting, changing their status quo into something different. People hesitate when it comes to change because they have attachment to their status quo. Their status quo is their comfort zone, and they have attachments to their comfort zone. Therefore, they resist change. And for instance, changing jobs, changing towns, changing homes, changing relationships, all these things are going to be part of our experience, and we should be open to it. Also, fear, excuse me, in most cases discourages people to change, the fear of the unknown. However, as human beings, we will experience change whether we like it or not. And the reason for that is we are designed to change, go through changes, and gain experiences to better ourselves and to reach our ultimate goals on both levels, physical and spiritual. Physical growth and spiritual growth go hand in hand. In reality, it is through our actions, interactions, we gain the spiritual growth. So all the experiences that we go through in our lives, whether it's good or bad, happy or sad, successful or not successful, it presents us the opportunity to change our perception, to expand our awareness, and to change our focus from being an individual to wholeness. In my book that was published recently, it's called The Divine Healing Energy, The Mystery of the Golden Light and How I Healed in Daytona Beach. I described the changes that I was going through during the period from 2007 to 2010. I was experiencing all kinds of changes, monumental changes during that period. Those changes were so intense and were happening simultaneously, were to a point where I didn't really have any choice to think or do anything but just go with the flow of the change. And during that period is where I experienced, for the first time in my life, great losses, and I was introduced to pain and grief. I would call them my 3 years of darkness. It felt as if the hell broke loose on me. To describe them quickly for now is I lost my 2 bookstores. Following that, I lost my 2 houses. I ended up moving back to my parents' house with my 2 adult children. Within the same year, I lost both my parents, and I was also separated from my son for the first time in 26 years. And then I was introduced to a new town called Daytona Beach, where I had to cope with the changes and the challenges of being in a new place and adjusting to a new lifestyle. Is that enough or what? Was it easy? Of course not. At first I was puzzled. I couldn't understand what was happening. And then I was disappointed. Then I got angry. How could this happen to me? I didn't expect this. I had planned out my life that to me what was happening, I couldn't comprehend it. Then eventually I got sad and then hopeless. I became so weak emotionally and physically. So I was just hanging around, and I was just existing without any desire or anything to accomplish. And what actually helped me to survive was my response to getting along, accepting, and making adjustments to the demands of all the changes that was happening at that time. Despite all the adversities and the challenges that I went through, I saw the light at the end. In the midst of my pain and grief, I was introduced to the divine light. And it was in that light where I found comfort, I gained my strength, and most of all, I found inner peace. Then I understood the whole purpose of all the changes that were happening in my life. I also learned that with every change comes a reward. So my message in this book is, be flexible when your life is demanding change. Do not resist change. Instead, welcome it. This is a new experience for me. Usually when I am asked to talk, I select a subject, I gather my thoughts, I write them down, I do my research, I find quotes, statements that would support my topic. Today my reference is going to be my own book, so this is a new experience for me, and I'm going to try to do my best. I don't know how it's going to transform. So in my book, in the first 2-3 chapters, I'm describing all the changes, the monumental changes that I went through. So I'm going to read and speak as I go. Coming to Daytona Beach was never planned. I had never been to Florida. I had an established life in Fresno, California. However, due to the circumstances I was facing at that time, I was guided to go to Daytona Beach. Due to the global economic meltdown, I lost my 2 businesses. One was the children's bookstore, retail, that catered to the school districts and teachers in the area. When the economy started getting back, the budget cuts started hitting the schools. There were hundreds and hundreds of teachers were being laid off from their positions. So the funds weren't there to purchase the extracurriculum books that the teachers bought it from my bookstore. So my revenues started declining drastically until the day came that I couldn't stay in business anymore. So I had no choice but just liquidating everything and shutting the business. And the other one was metaphysical bookstore. The economy again during I'm sure you all remember 2003, and it started just going nose down. No one hardly ever came to the bookstore. People were just sticking to that $1 that they had, not knowing where the economy was heading. So again, I couldn't keep up with the expenses that happened on a monthly basis, and my second bookstore came to an end too. Following that, I lost my 2 houses. We all know how the system works. When you fall behind in your mortgages, 2, maybe maximum the 3rd time, the house is not yours anymore. It goes to the banks. So all these things were things that I had never imagined it could happen to me. Imagine the hardship I went through undoing the 4 properties that I managed for 15 years. It is easier said than done. I had invested all my time, my life, and my money in my businesses and properties, thinking that since I am on top of everything, nothing will go wrong, as if I was so sure and guaranteed. I relied mainly on my well-established credit and the self-confidence I felt. I felt like I was unconquerable, to the point where people who knew me would wonder how I could manage all my business ventures by myself. To cut the story short, by the end of 2007, my life had turned completely upside down. And at the age of 47, a single mom, bankrupted, I found myself with my 2 children, grown-up adult children, at my parents' doorsteps. It felt as if I was on this long roller coaster ride that somehow landed at my parents' house. And here, not being recovered from my first nightmare, my second one was even worse. My parents' house had never been a harmonious place to live. though the house was big and spacious. However, there was constant tension, fights, arguments among my family members. Though my parents were married for 50 years, they never got along. They were both very strong, opinionated individuals that would clash all the time. So they always argued and fought. My brothers as well, they were constantly fighting and arguing. And me, on the other hand, I had completely different personality. I was calm and quiet. I avoided arguments. I often wondered what a weird family I have. How can I be born in this family? At one point, I convinced myself that maybe I could be switched at birth in the hospital. That's how different I was, and that's why I had kept my distance from my family. I loved my parents dearly. My brothers, I loved them so much. It's just that I couldn't be in the same room with them. And look at me, where I ended up, back in the same place, and I'm dealing with all this drama. And that was really shocking to me because finding myself at my parents' house, it was really disappointing for me. But I really had no choice at that time. I had nowhere to go, and being the loving parents they just welcomed me and my children. By the time I got to my parents' house, I was totally exhausted, drained, both physically and emotionally, with all the upheavals that I was dealing with. One thing that never changed at my parents' house was, again, the yelling and the screaming and the arguments. And having no other choice, I had to sit through it. All I did was I sat there quietly, and I was crying most of the time. Not being able to do anything. I'm not going to change them. Obviously, they haven't changed after so many years. They're not going to change now. But I just sat through. I accepted the situation I was in and went along with it. A few months later, while I was there, my father died unexpectedly, and we were all in shock. One day, there was this biggest fight going on in the family again, and my dad had a heart attack, and he died on the spot. And then all of a sudden, everyone, oh my God, what happened? And despite my dad's death, there was still tension in the house between my mother and my brothers, discussing businesses, finances, money, this and that. So my kids were really being affected by this whole situation, and I thought that it would be good for my son to just go away for a while and be with his father. He lived in Europe at that time. So within a week, my son left, and that was actually the first time that we were separated. We always worked together. My kids helped me around with my business. So that was a very sad experience to add on the top of all the other sadness. And my daughter at that time, she was finishing her bachelor's degree. It was her last semester. And as soon as she graduated, she started sending her resumes looking for a job. However, she wasn't getting any response. The job market got hit so bad in California that it was unbelievable. So then she started expanding her search to outside California. And she started sending her resumes and said that whoever calls me first for an interview, that's where I will go. And guess what? Her first call was from Daytona Beach, the University of Phoenix. As she was getting ready to go, she didn't want to leave me behind, and she insisted that I go with her. So that's how I ended up coming to Daytona Beach. Here I am now in a new town. There is a new beginning, a set of new changes and challenges. It's like this is happening so drastically. Within 2-3 months, something new. My coming to Daytona Beach was within less than a year to what was happening previously. So I come to Daytona Beach. It's a different town, different place. I don't really know anybody, and it's completely a place where it's the opposite where I grew up, and this is how I describe it to read it quickly. What a monumental change. From West Coast to East Coast. From farmland in Central Valley near Fresno, California, to Atlantic Ocean touristic shores in Daytona Beach, Florida. This was a totally different environment, people, and culture. I came from one extreme with diverse culture to a community with no diversity. It was just the total opposite. My daughter started going to work, and I was by myself pretty much all day until she came back. I found myself in a totally new place where I knew nobody. I left my entire legacy behind me as if nothing existed before. I often felt naked, stripped of not only my life, but my soul too. I felt like my dead body was moving around without any desire to do anything or think anything. I pretty much just existed. As I started getting used to the town, Daytona Beach, I started taking walks to the beach, to the ocean, and I would feel that I was healing, something was changing in me. The more I frequented the ocean, I started appreciating the healing power of the water and the ocean. And soon summer arrived and the humidity just invaded the Daytona. It was the beach coming. I was literally suffocating because I was not used to this weather. And in California, yes, it gets very hot, but there is no humidity. It's dry, which is bearable. But here, I was like, what is this? Where am I? I kept asking myself. As the saying goes, you will get used to after 40 days or something like that. So I started adapting to the environment, to the people that I really had nothing in common with. All my life I had interacted with intellectual, professional peoples, and here I wasn't really coming across, anyways, I wasn't in a position to even interact or do anything. I was just so engrossed with my horrible experiences that it didn't even allow me the chance to look or interact or say something. After the summer, as September was approaching, we decided to, now it's 5-6 months almost, we decided to get an apartment and stay here for a year. So we rented an apartment that was close to the shopping center called Bel Air Plaza. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was convenient where I could walk. I didn't drive at that time. I did not want to be in a car. And to me, walking, it was healing. I would feel better as I walked, and I didn't have to get involved with the traffic and all that. So we started, my daughter and I, she was working. It was hectic for her too. She was working for $9 an hour with her bachelor's degree. But at that time, that was something common. Too many people were going through that experience. And she also, she couldn't tolerate it at one point. And we often talked and discussed that maybe we should return back to Fresno. At least, you know, my parents' house is there. But then we thought there isn't really much left there other than sad memories. And so we convinced ourselves to just to stay here and cope with our life. So then it was around Thanksgiving. This is happening. I'm describing the entire year. And we had a Thanksgiving together. Of course, it was different than what we used to have back in my hometown. The whole week, we had guests, relatives, friends come over, and the fiesta was going on. We had fun, and here I was, my daughter and I, we had this little apartment. It was my first time living in an apartment, and we had few dishes on the table. It was actually, we had good feelings, happy memories and sad memories, but at the end of the day, we were both thankful that we had a place of our own. And we were grateful for that. Following the Thanksgiving, I get a phone call from my brother in Fresno, informing me that Mom had a stroke and she was in the hospital in the emergency room, and she was on life support, and he asked me that I go, hurry and go. Again, I didn't have a choice at that time, though I didn't want to because I wasn't sure if I could handle the whole incident. I wasn't stable emotionally and physically. However, my daughter insisted that I go, and unfortunately, by the time I got there, my mom had passed over, so I didn't have the chance to tell her goodbye. For some reason, my mom's sudden departure, it just broke my heart. I would feel my heart aching with pain that I had never experienced in my entire life. So I took a huge down emotionally again. I just didn't care to live anymore. Now I was totally a hopeless case. There were nights where I couldn't even sleep and I was just crying. As I was grieving one day, I felt as if this pain really took me. I couldn't take it anymore. And I felt like I died, but I think I really died. The pain took me, and all I can think of was I was taken to this brilliant light. It was golden light, vast golden light, and I just don't remember what happened after that. The next thing I remember is I became conscious, and but I was feeling different. My eyes were dry and my heart was not aching like before I had my experience with this light. And most of all, I felt peace that I had never experienced before. Altogether, it felt like I was in a different dimension, not of the one that I felt before having this experience with the golden light. And while I was thinking what happened, where I went, what was that, I couldn't figure out, but I felt like my mom and my dad were present in the room where I was. They were sitting in their recliner chairs, but I just couldn't see them. I just felt their energy. They were there. While I was trying to figure out all this, I heard my phone. It was my daughter calling. She was worried to death. She's been trying to reach me for the past, I think, 2-3 hours, and she couldn't get hold of me. There were like maybe 50 missed phone calls. Finally, I answered the phone, and she said that she was coming to Fresno to bring me back to Daytona Beach. After my experience with the golden light, I started changing drastically. As weeks were passing by, I would notice I was getting better and feeling lighter. I would remember how I felt sometimes for me to drag my body around, but I was feeling much lighter and freer. And most of all, I was feeling peaceful. Feeling peaceful was a new emotion for me, which I really didn't feel except when I meditated. Within a few weeks, I found myself totally changing. One day I woke up with happy feelings, truly happy for no reason. To the point where I started questioning myself, is this really me? I had started to notice those sad feelings were visiting me, the memories of my mom, and I noticed that those were visiting me less and less and were almost gone. Days would pass and I had not cried. It was amazing. What happened, I didn't know. Yes, I would remember my mom's memories, but my heart was not crying anymore. I would acknowledge the sadness, but I would let it go too. I felt liberated a little. I felt I was gaining my strength back, and I felt good about it. I hadn't felt this way since my life took a nosedive into the bottom. I would get glimpses of my strength I had before, and the strength would become stronger until I started regaining my strength, full strength back. So I got back into my meditation routine, and this time my meditation was completely different than what I used to do before. As soon as I would sit in my meditation, I would feel my body drifting, shifting higher, and I would go into trance, and in that trance the golden light appears again. And I say this because it is truly such a feeling that I cannot describe it. It's just I sense it, I feel it. And from that light, the golden healing energy starts coming and going through my entire body. And it happens very instantly. It is very instant. But by the time I'm done with the meditation, I feel good, I feel great, I feel renewed, refreshed, and energized. And most of all, I feel peace and bliss, which is, to me, it's like unimaginable. It was around my 50th birthday. Actually, April is where my birthday is, and when I used to walk around that Bel Air Plaza, there was a Starbucks there that I would stop by and get a cup of coffee. I love coffee. It's my favorite drink. And there was a group there that they met locally every day, and they would sit down and then talk, and they would watch who's new, who's not new, who's coming in, who's going. So apparently they would watch me as I would go in and out, and one day they invited me to join their circle, and they would discuss about their lives, the politics, the business, whatever is going on. So they became my friends, my first friends in Daytona Beach, which I really didn't know any of them. So it was my birthday when I walked, I went on my usual walk. I stopped by Starbucks, and they were all there wishing me happy birthday, Ashkhen, and they knew it was my birthday. So I took my coffee and I went out and I sat down. There was a couple at the next table. They were tourists, and they were having coffee. All of a sudden, this woman comes out of nowhere, a strange woman, and she is talking with them. And I don't know what she said. This woman got so mad, and she started yelling at this couple, and those couple were just totally terrified. And then she left, and they looked at me, the couple looked at me as I was sitting on the table next to them, and they shook their heads. What was that? And they were puzzled. I said, you have no idea what I've seen here, this entire, on this chair. I've seen it all kinds of people, all kinds of people. And I said, I could really write a book about it. And she looked at me and she said, you should write that book and make sure you include this incident that happened. I said, yeah, okay. And I was just, kidding with her. And then when it was time to leave, she came straight to me, the woman, and she said, you better write that book. And I went, oh, okay. And, I said, I will, but I really had no intention about writing the book. I don't know, to me that book industry had ended. I had really didn't have any attachment. But as I went home that day and sat down, and all of a sudden, again, I was just naturally drifted to do meditation, and the golden light appeared again. It was the first time that I was reaching for my pen and a notepad, and this energy started rushing through my arm. I wasn't in front of the computer, and I hand wrote this book first, and then I had to transfer it to the computer. And I would feel the energy rushing, and I was just writing. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't planning on what to say or what not to say. It just started happening. And the entire year that I spent in Daytona Beach, it showed up as a movie. I was watching and I was writing. So that's how
I don't want to interrupt you, but the camera's about out of time, so if there's something important you want to get out on the video.
Yes. I am coming to that point, which is
you could shut off at
the
any
rewards.
minute, so.
That's okay. It's the two important points that I'm trying to make is about the rewards that we go through, the changes that we experience. And in my case, founding the inner peace was the best reward I've ever mastered in my life. And the next I talk about the infinite self, which is our spirit. And the reason why we go through the changes and the challenges in our lives, it is because our spirit wanting to be free. We are not physical beings, we are spiritual beings as well. And in reality, our essence is a spirit.